Some people marry only for a certain number of years and they struggle too much and they give up. Listen, you don't have to struggle alone, and you don't have to have a short-lived marriage just because you don't want to seek help. Many of our African friends still look at counseling with suspicion. They feel like, I'm going to tell my secrets to someone I don't know. It's not going to work. Listen, there's confidentiality in counseling. When you come to see a counselor, you don't only spare yourself from the heartache you sometimes have for a long time, but you can extend the life of your marriage. And there are many other benefits outside of the two I just mentioned.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today. This is another edition of Iwing Marketplace, and we're here with Dr. Arllen, all the way in Virginia. Thank you, Arllen, for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Ivan.
Today we're going to be talking about marriage, and I'm grateful that, you decided to come online, to talk about this topic. So can you introduce yourself?
Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Arllen Ade. I'm originally from Cameroon, Central West Africa, depending on who is describing it. Married to Winnie for 16 years, 3 children, blessed to have them. Been a counselor by training and a pastor as well of a church here in Virginia.
Wow, that's nice. Wow, and being a counselor, it must be a lot of work and a lot of talking. What inspired you to get to that field,
Well, I must first and foremost say that I feel after I finished my undergraduate studies, God led me back to graduate school to study counseling. And when I got in, I studied pastoral counseling in seminary, and then I moved on to study a Ph.D. in professional counseling. So that's the first thing, God calling me. But the second was I'd looked around and seen that many of our minority populations, many of our African friends here in the diaspora did not have a place where they could go to and be understood culturally by the counselors. And I began to have a desire to be that person, at least to join my voice to the few people in the market who studied mental health counseling and were also ready pastorally and biblically to help people who needed help.
Wow, that's nice. I'm always very happy when I see, people like you helping the community. So today we're going to be talking about marriage. Especially this topic is important at this moment because a lot of people are at home with their, spouse during COVID-19, and they may be, encountering one or two kind of problems, So this is it's a very timely topic. So can you tell us what is marriage counseling all about?
Well, marriage counseling, simply put, is actually a therapeutic relationship between a counselor and a couple, okay? Married couple, generally speaking, and they come in and seek the help of this person. The marriage counselor who is trained knows how to conduct or facilitate a dialogue between these two people in a way that helps them arrive at their goals. So we set goals for the people. We do it collaboratively, which means they tell us what they want and we guide them through making sure that the goals are measurable, attainable, smart goals, in other words. And so we now lead them session after session toward attaining these goals through corrective questioning, directive questioning, clarifying questions that we ask people, relating to them emotionally, trying to join them when they're grieving or hurting in some ways, and trying to, maybe in some cases, shaking the other person to see what the other one is dealing with that they've not been able to do by themselves. So that's what marriage counseling is. It's a relationship between a counselor and a couple who need help.
Wow, well put. I mean, I really understand what you're talking about, and being married myself for more than 7 years now. I mean, there are some little problems that you face that it can easily be mediated from what you've explained. But what are the skills that couple must have in a relationship or in a marriage union?
I'd like, that's a great question, Mr. Ivan. So many people go into marriage fully unawares of the things they should, they will be meeting or they'll be seeing or experiencing in marriage. So there are some skills that they need to have, I think. But before I even jump to the skills, I'd like to say that regardless of your state, the state in which you are in marriage, we can help bring hope to your marriage. I believe that biblical counselors and trained counselors of marriage from any part of the world need to have this hope focus that they bring to marriages that are struggling and suffering. And I really would like to say that's the kind of counselor we are. We are a hope focused counseling practice that brings hope to fallen marriages or suffering marriages. As far as the skills, like I said before, there are several skills that we need, but there are a few of them that stand out that people really need for them to have a successful marriage. One of them is it's important to be able to give and to receive forgiveness. To be able to give and to receive forgiveness. In other words, if you're going to get married to someone, remember that you need to have both load of forgiveness to give, because that person will hurt you. That person will make mistakes. So you should be willing to give forgiveness, but also to receive forgiveness, which takes me to the second point. The second point is being willing to confess your faults when you make errors. To say, I'm sorry. This, three-worded sentence, that three-worded sentence is a very powerful sentence. But it's especially powerful when you say, I'm sorry, the right way. In our practice, we help people through what we call couples dialogue to say, I'm sorry the right way, after being able to empathically listen. So you have people who, the skill set of forgiveness. The next is being able to confess your fault to the other person. But thirdly, we want to make sure that you learn the skill of communicating what you mean, to say exactly what you mean, what they have done to you, how it makes you feel. Being able to communicate is a very critical skill to have. I like what Benjamin Franklin said. He says, remember not only to say the right thing in the right place, but far more difficult still is to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. You see, being able to communicate well requires that you know what to say and what not to say. I mean, like what in Proverbs, the scriptures, chapter 17, verse 27 says. It says, he who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. See, I believe that while both men and women need to learn how to restrain their tongues, women especially, it's been my experience, would need to know how to speak softly and kindly, even when they are upset about something. While men, on the other part, need to learn how to bring their anger under control. Like the scriptures say, not to allow their anger to cause them to sin. So, confession of sins, forgiveness, communicating well are some of the many skills you can learn before you get married, which will help you have a successful marriage.
Wow. Thanks so much. That is really, really important piece of information there that you've just shared. So, but I would like to ask you, what are the benefits that couples can get from marriage counseling?
Well, some of the benefits they can get, first one is it spares them the heartache of having to deal with a problem situation by yourself, or just with your spouse who may not be in a state of mind to understand you. So to spare you that trouble, sometimes I'd recommend highly that you go see a pastor or go see a trained counselor, or both. I am both. I'm both trained as a pastor and as a professional counselor, who, by the way, also teaches counseling. I've taught 8 courses in counseling and psychology for 2 universities here in the US. And I'm telling you, the benefits outweigh the costs of going to see a counselor. One of which is it spares you the heartache of hitting your head with the other person. Secondly, it helps, extend your marriage life. Some people marry only for a certain number of years and they struggle too much and they give up. Listen, you don't have to struggle alone, and you don't have to have a short-lived marriage just because you don't want to seek help. Many of our African friends still look at counseling with suspicion. They feel like, I'm going to tell my secrets to someone I don't know. It's not going to work. Listen, there's confidentiality in counseling. When you come to see a counselor, you don't only spare yourself from the heartache you sometimes have for a long time, but you can extend the life of your marriage. And there are many other benefits outside of the 2 I just mentioned.
Wow, that's really nice. So, but what are the challenges that you have faced as a marriage counselor?
Challenges I have faced as a marriage counselor is, number one, I have realized that though I've been married for 16 years to my dear wife, I'm not perfect. And sometimes other people's problems trigger my own problems. That's something I'm trained in school to avoid, but it does happen sometimes. And that's one challenge I face, which means I have to immerse myself in prayer. I have to be in the Word of God. So God helps me not to transfer other people's problems into my own marriage. For instance, a woman who's cheating on her husband, a woman who's gossiping a lot, a woman who's untrustworthy, who's insubmissive. If I work with those kinds of couples, I tend to begin to see those things in my marriage, even when they don't exist. Why? Because I deal with problem marriages a lot. That's just one challenge I face.
Wow. Wow. So you deal with mostly problem couples. What about young people that are planning to get married? Do you do marriage counseling?
Oh, yes, we do premarital work with people who are seeking to be married. But even before premarital counseling, you see there are three levels I do. I do what I call pre-engagement counseling. When you find a young girl or young boy, a young man that you really like, you think your hearts are really, coming together very strongly, and you do the right thing. What the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23, guard your heart, because out of it come the issues of life. Which means before you give your heart to somebody, check to see if this is the right person. So people come to see me quite often to say, can you help gauge this person for me? Are they really the right person? Just this summer, I've done about 3 different weddings with couples I worked with from the pre-engagement phase, which means they came to me when they fell in love. And we worked with them for a couple of months. Then they were ready to propose. Once they proposed, then they're now able to now enter the second phase with me called the pre-marital counseling phase. I take them through, and then when they get married, they reach out to me and say, please, can you help us? We have one issue or another. Then we do marriage counseling. So yes, we do see people for different kinds of marriage-related issues, not only problem marriages, but pre-marital or pre-engagement, premarital, and marriage issues.
I hope you guys are getting this. If you're planning to get married, Dr. Arllen is the one you should be speaking to right now. So
Thank you.
my other question is kind of tricky, but it's very simple. There are a lot of marriages that have problems, and people usually don't know what to do, and sometimes it results in, something catastrophic. What advice do you have for people who are going through problems in their relationships and don't know what to do?
That is a real relevant question, because I've noticed that, again, there is no perfect marriage out here, but the marriages that get worse and worse to the place of maybe separation and, God forbid, divorce, and even worse things have happened recently on the news. You've heard some worse things that have happened to people who are frustrated with each other for too long. I say this one key word: communication. See, communication and communicating right can set your marriage on a plane that you never expected. Or the other side of it is bad communication can really tank it, can bring it down and destroy it. So I have maybe 5 quick tips I could say about communication and how to do it right within your marriage when you're faced with difficulties. Remember this. Number 1, having a positive listening ability, being able to listen, not for the worst, but to assume the best of the other person, so that even if there's an error somewhere they're making, you'll be able to say, I know I love this person. I know they're good, but he just made an error. But in the act of listening, which is part of communication, you get that particular problem off the place, off the table, because you know how to listen positively. Second, you have to learn to use clarifying words when you communicate. In other words, if you don't understand, the Bible says, unwholesome talk, I'm thinking Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, unwholesome talk can come out of your mouth because you do not understand. So being able to clarify, did you mean this when you said this, is key in communication. It will help you control your words. Third, use building words. Instead of using words to break down people, use words to build them, because it can be helpful for encouraging people even when they're down, when things are difficult for them. Remember, they are not perfect. So when you use, you're a good listener and you're able to ask clarifying questions, and then you use building words, you are doing your marriage a great favor. Fourth, last but not least, second to the last, is healing words. Use words that heal wounds. Don't use words that open up wounds of the past in a way that matches the current need of your partner. Do your best to always use words that heal their wounds, not cause the wounds to fester and to grow bigger. And then last, of course, and not least, use edifying words, because they will often benefit your partner. As you listen to them, you think of, what can I say to them that will lift them up? Not just heal them, not just build them up, but to completely edify them. Edify means to make them feel uplifted, feel like, wow, I can survive in this marriage. Wow, I'm so glad I'm married to you. Without you, I don't know how my life would have been. With all my weaknesses, you're still able to listen to me positively, to clarify when you have doubts about my communication, to help build me through your words, to heal me through your words, and finally to edify me. What a partner I have in you.
Wow, those are great words there. Those are very good advice. Thanks, Arllen, for sharing. And to be honest, me and you, we come a long way.
That's
We
right.
are childhood friends, and I'm really, really proud of you and what you've built, what you have, accomplished, especially having your own practice, Dr. Arllen Ade Associates Counseling. Please,
Right.
before we go, tell us about that and how people can get in touch with you.
Thank you, Ivan. By the way, I'm really very proud of you as well. The things you've been able to accomplish through your marketing business and other things you've been involved in. And that's what drew me to you and to your interview. So thank you for that. I'd like for you to know that, with Dr. Arllen Ade and Associates Counseling and Coaching, I don't work alone. I work with other associates. I have a medical doctor, friend and colleague who's our service manager. He's also a trained counselor. He's based out in Kentucky. His name is Dr. Ben Najeme. He is a great counselor and a medical doctor also. So we have people like that. We have Ryan Sanders, who's a pastor, is working on his doctorate right now. He's very educated in the areas of biblical counseling, and he too can help you. We have John Feek and a few others. Point being, this practice is something I do on the side. I work full-time as a pastor, and by God's grace, I pastor as a regional pastor over 2,500 people. I don't do it alone. I work with 4 other lay pastors, 15 deacons and deaconesses, and 40 small group leaders. So we lead these many people by God's grace, and I do this on the side. When it's my time to do counseling through my private practice, I focus my attention on listening to people so closely. So if you have a problem, do not be afraid to just reach out. We'll listen to you so intently, you will be surprised. Making notes all the while and trying to diagnose the issue from the root, not just the fruit. The fruit is just the symptoms we see. Sometimes we counselors make the error of jumping to the fruit too quickly. I go to the root, the heart of the issue, and I try to give you a treatment plan after having diagnosed the issue that will work for you and your spouse. And I don't just do marriage counseling. I do emotional disorders, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. I work with all kinds of people that I even have right now. I have a client who's dealing with an eating disorder. So we have people from a diverse background of problems who come to see us, and you too can come to us. Addictions we work with as well. You can come and see us, and we'll be glad to help you.
How can people get in touch with you?
Just go to Dr. DrArllenAde.com, drarllenade.com, or you can simply email me at arllenade@gmail.com. If you go to our website, you see our numbers out there, and you should be able to reach us anytime you need to. If it's not me, someone else will reach out to you within 24 hours.
Thank you, Arllen. And
You're welcome.
let me address you the right way. Thank you, Dr. Arllen.
You're welcome.
This has been wonderful.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you all for watching. You could have been anywhere. This is a Saturday. It's a busy Saturday, but you're with us watching this informative session with Dr. Arllen. We really appreciate that. You've heard he's a marriage counselor. He's a counselor. Get in touch with him, and he will be able to help you to put your life in the right direction with the help or by the help of God. Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.